The tow truck was already backing across my gravel driveway, its massive, intimidating tires chewing up the brittle desert landscaping, while two goons in ill-fitting polo shirts screamed across the property line about immediate vehicle seizure. This wasn't some casual neighborhood spat over overgrown juniper bushes or an accidental violation of a hedge height. This was, fundamentally, a calculated act of corporate theft, a brazen, thinly veiled land grab orchestrated by Veronica Sterling, the self-proclaimed, iron-fisted queen of Canyon Ridge Estates HOA. She thought she saw an easy target, a dusty, quiet, seemingly helpless old rancher, someone entirely disposable. She could easily steamroll in her relentless, neurotic quest for sterile, suburban perfection. But she made one catastrophic, fatal mistake, the kind that ends careers and starts major federal investigations. She didn't realize the quiet guy she was harassing was actually Ethan Vance, a retired special agent for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms and Explosives, ATF, in short, and I was on long-term medical leave, fighting hard to reclaim and find my peace. I wasn't just observing them break the law. I was patient, operating from a place of cold, utterly controlled calculation, a discipline forged over 2 decades in high-risk environments. I was waiting, hidden in plain sight like a predator settling into the brush, ensuring every legal step they took was recorded for the perfect, delicious moment to spring a comprehensive federal trap. This is the whole, complete, blow-by-blow story of how I let Veronica and her minions walk right into a 10-year felony charge, how I systematically dismantled her entire criminal operation from the ground up with one precise flash of my badge, and why my grandfather's beloved 1969 Chevrolet C10, the Green Giant, is absolutely the last piece of property Veronica Sterling will ever try to tow or even touch. That truck was infinitely more than transportation. It was my anchor, a great, green, metal monument to the quiet sanity I desperately sought after 15 years spent chasing bad men and dismantling organized crime. My wife, Sarah, was the only soul who knew the deep, ugly truth of my transition back to civilian life. The raw, dense calluses on my hands came just as much from the repetitive, high-tension friction of a pistol grip as they did from a shovel handle. For 2 decades, my idea of a tough day wasn't a busted water line or a sick calf, but a high-stakes, breathless standoff in some forgotten, smoky warehouse down by the border, where the air itself felt electrified with risk, and the stakes were always unequivocally life or death. We bought this ranch specifically to drown out that relentless, internal noise, the constant mental checklist of threats and escape routes, to let the vast, echoing silence of the Arizona high desert mend the fractured part of me that habitually saw threats in every shadow and instinctively couldn't trust the dark. I was trying, fighting, to maintain the fragile peace I had rented, a peace that required constant, exhausting vigilance. But as the bureau psychiatrist used to drill into my head, peace is a rental, not a permanent purchase, and you always have to be ready for the landlord. Or, in this case, the HOA president and her budget brand security, to show up demanding exorbitant payments or sending her pathetic thugs to enforce fictional rules. The first sign of trouble, that the price of peace was going up, came in a thick, ridiculously heavy, pretentious envelope from the Canyon Ridge Estates HOA. We were technically grandfathered out of their rules, based on the age and original agricultural zoning of the property, a fact I had confirmed after meticulously reviewing the deed. The letter, however, accused the Green Giant of being a derelict utility vehicle that negatively impacted the aesthetic harmony of their community. I tossed the thick paper onto the kitchen table. HOA speak for we hate anything that doesn't look new, requires actual work, or has a personality older than 3 years. The sheer, staggering, monumental absurdity of their complaint was what truly infuriated me. My ranch was established before their entire beige subdivision even had blueprints. It was a beautiful, rugged landscape of ironwood and stubborn mesquite, and they, sitting in their perfectly sterile, zero-lot line stucco boxes, were lecturing me about aesthetic harmony as if I had parked a toxic waste dump on my front lawn. The letter demanded its immediate removal within 10 days, threatening escalating fines that started at $500 a day, and, finally, they would tow it at my expense under the fraudulent guise of remediation. It was signed with an intimidating, self-important flourish by Veronica Sterling. Sarah, recognizing the underlying threat was not aesthetic but purely territorial and aggressive, didn't even have to say it. The quiet was definitively, officially over. The game had begun. A week later, two goons in tight, unprofessional HOA security shirts, Brad and Leo, pulled up in a white SUV covered in peeling vinyl decals. They looked exactly like discount mall cops who had spent too much time lifting weights and not enough time reading a single law book. I met them at the closed gate, enjoying the shade of the old cottonwood, deliberately letting them stew in the desert heat. Brad tried to look big, demanding I remove the vehicle, using his bulk and proximity to try and loom over the fence, a classic, tired intimidation tactic. I calmly informed them, "You're not law enforcement. You're simply trespassers with cheap walkie-talkies." I pointed out they had zero legal jurisdiction on my deeded property, which was a separate, century-old tax parcel entirely, predating their entire existence. Brad, who was clearly accustomed to people immediately crumbling and folding under pressure, doubled down. He escalated quickly, threatening grand theft auto and spitting out the name of his boss, claiming direct, non-negotiable authorization from Veronica Sterling. I returned the threat, my voice losing its easy rancher drawl and taking on the distinct, cold, measured edge of an experienced interrogator who knows exactly where the legal tripwire is. "The next time you show up, I'll have you arrested for criminal trespassing, and I promise you, the county jail will not, under any circumstances, honor your cheap, vinyl HOA ID badges or their supposed authority." That's a promise, not a suggestion. They left, defeated and profoundly confused, their cheap boots scuffing the gravel, but I knew with absolute certainty they would be back. And next time, they wouldn't be bringing a clipboard. They'd be bringing force, which meant I had to be ready for a weapon. 48 hours came and went. I spent the time doing what I always did, mending fences, physical and mental, and securing the area with professional-grade vigilance that would make any field office proud. The perimeter cameras I installed were now running on continuous loop, wired into a separate, redundant power source, providing military-grade visibility of every square foot, and the ranch house was secure. I wasn't waiting passively. I was deliberately staging the scene, ensuring the cameras captured every single potential felony with timestamps and perfect clarity. On the third day, a Friday, they returned, this time with a beat-up flatbed tow truck trailing behind their SUV. Sarah was filming from the porch, capturing every detail, zooming in on the tow truck's license plate as Brad yelled, his voice cracking with desperation. "We have a final removal order and a legal right to enforce it. This is your last chance." I told him it was meaningless paper signed by a civilian and that both he and the driver were now accessories to attempted grand theft. When Brad ignored my warning and recklessly waved the driver forward, and the tow truck started backing across my dirt with its frantic beeper shrieking, the line had finally been crossed into the clear realm of actionable crime. I walked right up to Brad. He sneered, his confidence fleetingly returning in a pathetic attempt to reclaim dominance. "Or what? You going to throw a saddle at me, old man? Or maybe feed me to the cows for compost?" I didn't answer with words. I simply reached into my back pocket, pulled out my black, official wallet, flipped it open, and the gold shield of the ATF, burnished and official, caught the harsh Arizona morning sun, flashing brightly, undeniably, right in front of his face. He froze instantly, mid-sneer, his face draining to the color of wet cement as he slowly, agonizingly read the engraved words around the seal. "Special Agent, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives." "Federal agent," I said. The silence was deafening, the reality heavy enough to crush a car. I ticked off the immediate crimes they had just committed, listing them with the clinical precision of a veteran field report. Conspiracy to interfere with a federal officer. Attempted grand theft auto conspiracy. Criminal trespassing. Your boss just ordered you to commit multiple, serious felonies, all of which are now recorded on my private security system, with timestamps, audio confirmation, and perfect angles. Brad stammered pathetically that it must be a fake, a prop, a trick. I countered, leaning in close so only he could hear the chilling ice in my voice. Do you really want to bet your freedom, your future, your entire miserable existence on that? Because if you're wrong, you're looking at serious federal time. Now, you have exactly 5 seconds to reverse your tow truck and get off my grass before I make the next call. And that one will bring armed reinforcements who won't be as polite as I am. Leo panicked instantly, physically grabbing Brad by the arm and dragging him back to the SUV, whispering frantic apologies. The tow truck driver quickly pulled out, leaving 2 deep, muddy, incriminating ruts. The immediate threat was gone, but the larger war had just begun, and I had all the perfect, undeniable evidence I needed. I told Sarah we were done playing defense. The ranch was going on the offensive, shifting from a crime scene to a command center. Our kitchen table transformed into a strategic field office, covered in legal pads, corporate documents, and county maps. Using my old law enforcement contacts and Sarah's truly relentless research skills, she has a gift for navigating the dark web of public records and shell company registrations. We quickly compiled a mountain of undeniable evidence. Sarah specifically located corporate filings showing that Veronica was the sole registered agent for Silverado Community Patrol LLC and Desert Bloom Landscaping, the 2 shell companies that received nearly 80% of the HOA's service and security contracts. This was a textbook case of brazen self-dealing, flagrant embezzlement, and systematic financial fraud, using her elected position to siphon hundreds of thousands of dollars from unsuspecting homeowners, people like poor Mrs. Gable who were already struggling on fixed incomes. The entire scheme, involving interstate wire transfers and the U.S. mail, placed it squarely in federal jurisdiction. Veronica was no longer a petty HOA bully. She was a major white-collar criminal who had unwittingly targeted a federal agent. I decided to give her one more chance to publicly hang herself and humiliate herself. It came in the form of an illegal security checkpoint set up by Brad and Leo on Public County Road 14, a desperate, final attempt to assert dominance. They were harassing actual commuters, trying to prove they still had power. I pulled up, got out, and, ignoring their phony authority, bypassed the goons entirely and dialed 911. Hello, dispatch. My name is Ethan Vance. I'd like to report an illegal obstruction of a roadway. 2 men in fake security uniforms are stopping traffic, and they appear to be agitated and potentially armed. I'm a former federal officer, standing by. Brad and Leo realized their tiny game of cops and robbers was about to meet the real law, the armed, county version. They fled instantly, leaving their sign behind, utterly defeated by a simple phone call and the impending arrival of the county sheriff. Veronica, utterly furious, her rage blinding her to common sense, decided to come herself the next Saturday morning, driving her menacing black Mercedes G-Wagon, flanked by Brad and a new, eager henchman named Mitch and the tow truck. She shrieked, her voice brittle with rage, that she was performing a full inspection for an unregistered slaughterhouse operation and that I was interfering with community health standards. I told her she wasn't welcome and calmly blocked the barn entrance. Mitch, the new hothead, lunged at me, clearly trying to prove his loyalty and earn back the money Brad had lost. For a man with my years of self-defense training, his clumsy, wide swing was truly in slow motion. I didn't engage in a messy brawl. I used trained, non-lethal efficiency and minimum necessary force. I pivoted, easily deflected his arm with a forearm block, and immediately applied a quick, excruciating radial nerve and wrist lock, forcing him instantly to his knees, his face slamming into the dirt with a satisfying thud. I then securely zip-tied his hands behind his back, tightening the plastic until it clicked 3 times. I then turned my full, cold attention to Veronica, pulling out my phone. I didn't call 911. I called the ATF's Phoenix Field Division directly, using the secure internal line, and put the call on speaker. Agent Vance, badge 7539, requesting immediate assistance at my home address. Officer in distress, suspect in custody for assault on a federal agent. Upgrade response to code 3. The crisp voice confirmed units were rolling. The gravity of the situation instantly understood across the federal airwaves. Veronica's face drained to a ghastly, pasty white, the total, crushing realization of the scope of her mistake finally crashing down on her. The local deputy who arrived first was completely stunned by the sight of the subdued man and the ATF shield, but moments later, two dark sedans full of ATF agents roared up, lights flashing but no sirens, the quiet, deadly professionals. Marcus, the agent in charge, took over the scene, completely ignoring Veronica's panicked, desperate shrieks. He calmly informed her, reading from a pre-prepared document based on our evidence, that they had compiled overwhelming evidence of wire fraud, mail fraud, extortion, and embezzlement, all coordinated by her, and now, conspiracy to commit assault on a federal officer. As the cold steel clicked around her wrists, Veronica let out a pathetic, animalistic wail that echoed across the quiet desert, her imagined power evaporating in that single metallic sound. The Queen's reign was definitively, publicly, over, broadcast to my neighbors, and perfectly captured on Sarah's camera. The legal hammer fell swiftly and without mercy. Veronica was eventually convicted on multiple federal counts. The wire fraud alone carried significant weight, sentenced to 7 to 10 years in federal prison, and ordered to pay massive restitution back to the homeowners she had systematically stolen from. Everything she built on lies was seized, including the G-Wagon and the HOA funds she had siphoned. I returned to my quiet ranch life. The Green Giant was safe, a monument to a battle won by patience and legal strategy. We had faced a serious threat with patience, intelligence, and the full weight of the law, letting the villain hang herself with her own bottomless greed. But here is the truly controversial part. Even on her way to prison, Veronica gave tearful interviews to local outlets, claiming I had abused my federal authority to settle a petty neighborhood dispute, painting herself as the true victim of deep state overreach and a target of government conspiracy. And the community she saved is now in complete chaos, fractured and arguing incessantly over who's responsible for paying the massive, long-neglected bills for the community pool's structural repairs and if they should ever form an HOA again. The problem wasn't just Veronica. It was the intoxicating abuse of concentrated power itself, and the people haven't figured out how to live without a strong hand, even a corrupt one, to guide them. So, I'm left wondering, standing here in the silence I fought so hard for, did I go too far? Was it right for a federal agent, even one on medical leave, to leverage the full, terrifying weight of the United States government, the ATF, the U.S. Attorney's Office, to settle a dispute that started over an ugly old truck? Or was I simply using the only effective tools of justice available to dismantle a very real criminal enterprise that just happened to threaten my peace and my home? I want to hear what you think. Let me know in the comments below. Did Agent Vance abuse his authority, or was he right to use every tool in his arsenal to defend his home and his community from a clear criminal threat? Like this video and share your stories of HOA nightmares. Let's talk about where the line truly is between community law and personal freedom.